Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Avorion episode 32. I'm Ignis, and today it's blueprint day for the Samson. Both of them. You can see we've got two here. I've been doing a lot of finishing details and kind of tidying some things up and trying to get the ships ready for a bit of a shakedown and get the blueprints up for you guys to grab them and start messing around, do whatever you like. Something strange happened. I could have sworn that I put inertial dampeners on this ship and the braking thrust was good. It seemed like it was in line until I went to do a little bit of messing around and found that I had zero brake thrust because I had somehow wound up with zero inertial dampeners on board, and I don't remember. Maybe I forgot to put them on altogether and I'm just, thinking that I did. Maybe there was a glitch, a bug happening that removed them from the ship. I don't know. All I know is I've added some since coming to this realization. I swapped out some of the gyros for inertial dampeners, gave us a little bit of brake thrust. The handling characteristics, if you're looking at the numbers, aren't necessarily anything to write home about. However, I'm kind of decided that we're at that cutoff point. I could tweak and modify and adjust, but I'd rather be moving on to other things at this point. So we're going to take a quick look at what we've got. We're going to take a quick rip around and see what the bad guys have to say about it, and then we're going to make sure that you have the links to the blueprints down in the information box below the video. So first things first, what's the difference between these two ships? Well, one of them is very small and the other one is not. This is the original here, the big one, and then we scale down the little one, and that's essentially what you're seeing here is the difference between the two. It's quite a substantial difference, but the real difference between the two is quite shocking. If we go to the ship information here, the full-size version, the one that we originally built, requires almost 2.8 million credits, 125,000 units of iron, and almost 600,000 units of titanium to build. It's pretty hardcore if you're playing in the early game and you decide that you want to build this ship and you want to save up the credits and titanium and iron to do it. You'll be at it for a while. And I couldn't recommend to someone that they actually engage, embark upon this process if they're interested in progressing in the game at a natural sort of pace, because by the time that you would have saved up all of this stuff, you could have advanced at more than one tier quite easily through the materials and put yourself in a much better position down the line. So that made it all the more important to have the miniature version, which is 365,000 credits, about 16,000 units of iron, and 62,000 and change units of titanium, which is, I think, a much more approachable quantity of materials in order to get into one of these ships and be able to scoot around and do what you want to do. Now, going back to what the original purpose of this ship was, is that these weren't necessarily intended to be combat ships, though they do have the ability to do so. They've got integrity field generators, they've got some beefy hardpoints on the front end of the ship where you can attach your turrets. They're, I think, fairly robust in the grand scheme of things. We're going to find out for sure momentarily here, but they also have cargo bays. They have the ability to get around at a fairly reasonable rate, and they've got the entire hull is made out of armor blocks. It's not made out of just regular hull blocks, so there's a certain robustness there. Even if you're not going to be involved in a lot of fighting, you should be able to find yourself free of any sort of encumbrance in terms of bad guys attacking you and not being able to get away. That shouldn't really be a problem. You should be able to take a certain amount of punishment before the ship starts to show real serious signs of wear and starting to lose key components and things of that nature. So if you're not looking to build a ship that's made for fighting, you can rest assured that this ship is going to do a pretty reasonable job of looking after you. And if you do find yourself being attacked, you can have a little bit of insurance, so to speak, to get you out of this situation before things start to go really bad. So that's that. Now, the one thing that I need to do for this ship is we need to make sure that, yes, we're not invincible, but we can get around. You can see the turning is not super fantastic. The roll is pretty good. Pitch and yaw, not necessarily as good. Top speed boosted, we're 12, 13, 14, 15. Just shy of 1600, I think would be a pretty reasonable conclusion to arrive, which is not bad. Tend to run out of fuel fairly quickly for boosting and otherwise making a pest of yourself. But it's not a bad little ship to pilot. The key is, you know, like any other ship that I've made, it seems you have to be a little bit aware of where you're going and looking far enough forward that you can anticipate problems before you get there. In this case, I am going directly out of my way to advance on these bad guys that are shooting up the system, just to see sort of how much damage the ship can take, putting itself directly in harm's way before things start to go south. At least I'm hoping that I'm able to do that before they all get destroyed. There's a lot more friendly ships, but they don't seem to be shooting back, so I'm guessing that they're freighters, part of some trade mission, etc., etc. This guy here, I'm sure he would love to be shooting at someone, but nobody is close enough, so if we get in there, we might be able to make ourselves a candidate for the abuse that he's wishing he could give out. Either that or his last engagement resulted in the destruction of his weapons and he's just floating around. Oh, here we go. So he's definitely shooting at us. It's hard to say how much he's actually hitting us. I guess most of the hits are landing. He's kind of a wuss, this guy. I feel like maybe actually his friend doesn't look to be in much better shape. Let's kind of get going on a bit of an intercept course here and go in for... Oh, we missed. Let's see if we can spin around without colliding with anything that's now behind us. And we'll head up this way. I was going to try and ram him, but that didn't work out so well. I didn't really keep the appropriate line in order to make that happen. This time we might get him. No, he just kind of scooted up and out of the way. I don't know if that's part of the AI as they get out of the way of incoming ships, but I do know that this guy is not really hurting us. And if he wasn't so maneuverable... Oh, there we go. We clipped him a little bit. Was it enough to anger him? I think we just kind of, yeah, we kind of spun him around a little bit. And consequently, he stopped shooting at us because his guns couldn't get a line. Yeah, I think these guys are designed to avoid ramming attempts. So this is really not an especially good test of the ship's ability to withstand damage. You can see we clipped this guy pretty good, so that worked out. Did a few hundred damage. There we go. That's one less him to worry about in this universe. And now we can sort of spin around and see, did we lose anything? Is there any visible signs of damage? Not so much. Maybe a little bit right down in this sort of corner underneath here. It looks like maybe we lost a few pieces. But overall, she's holding up pretty well. Not necessarily the most pulse-pounding combat that a person could imagine necessarily, but when you haven't mounted any turrets on your ship yet, it's nice to know that you've got some options. You're not entirely helpless. Now, I specifically didn't add any turrets to the ship because this ship doesn't come with turrets with the blueprint, and whatever you add to it is going to define how the ship performs with those turrets far more than anything related to the ship's design. So that's not really something that I think I need to be testing. but this is a little bit more hands-on and is a better representation of how well the ship can hold up to a certain amount of abuse to the front end. And by all appearances, it handles it pretty well. I don't think that we're going to actually sit through this whole process of trying to kill this guy, because he's doing a pretty good job of evading. We've managed to clip him a couple times. There we go. Oh, he's still alive. Cheeky little bugger. So let's take a look at the front end again. We've destroyed one ship by ramming, and the other one we've done a certain amount of damage. We've taken a little bit of visible damage to the front end. Not a lot. So in terms of the ship's ability to take a beating and kind of power through and not really care, I think we're doing okay for this stage of the game. I would say if you're wanting to make a serious run out of using this ship, one thing that you may want to consider is taking a look at that balance between gyros and inertial dampeners, maybe finding some spots to add additional inertial dampeners to the ship so that you can get better braking thrust, and also take a look at some of the maneuvering woes that you might be having as a result of the mass of the ship, just the sheer mass, and see if you can't get a little bit more pitch and yaw to make the ship a little bit more maneuverable. As for me, I'm moving on to the next build. I have some ideas that I want to try out. I've got a general idea for a hull design that I want to build, and I've also got some things that I want to test specifically with regards to maneuverability mechanics and making things go. There we go. Making things go in the direction that we want them to go when we want to go there. And that might be a good idea, is to take advantage of an opportunity to test some of those things, because there's all kinds of great feedback. Every time I post a video, people are offering suggestions and ideas and explanations for how things work. And it just seems like there's an awful lot of inconsistencies, not necessarily because people are wrong, but because it's difficult to pin down exactly what's going on, because it looks like you did things a certain way, but maybe the game doesn't recognize that you've done it that way. Or, you know, maybe the information is accurate from a point 6 months ago, for example, and now has been changed. Who knows? So the best thing to do is to test things out a little bit. Nothing too heavy duty, not a bunch of charts and math and all that other stuff, but just having a pretty good opportunity to set things up a certain way and see if they work the way that we might expect them to. So the next video is where we're going to get started on that. We're going to start to build, and if you want to be notified about that video, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.